Let's try to contain ourselves, and let's try to actually have a cocky conversation about this, because it matters. And like Chris Peters said to us last week, not only is he a shortcut, it also changes the way now that you approach things. He said the Hawks are sort of now obligated to bring in some veteran talent around Connor Bedard. Now, there's not a ton of veteran talent around to bring in. There are some free agents. Max Domi is a name that we really have not given up on since that trade was made, because he expressed the reason he came to Chicago was because of Luke Richardson. There was mutual interest between both teams, or both parties, rather, during the season. So maybe that's it. You're going to have Lucas Reichel here for 82 games. It's the mind just like spins about, you're building line combinations in your head already, and you're thinking about this stuff. It's unbelievable. And I really wonder what it's going to be, how Kyle Davidson is going to adjust his strategy, because, I'll tell you this. He's not making that thought for the first time right now. He had the Bedard plan. It's probably been in the works for months with him and his crew of, associate GMs and all those sort of things. I'm sure there's a different plan for if this happened, and I hope we get to ask. Kyle Davidson about that, because
that'd be wonderful.
I'm fascinated because, look, you want to be patient and you want to do the rebuild the right way, and I'm don't get me wrong, I think he's going to, but at the same time, you've got to look at it and say, wait a minute, we've got this kid here now. Don't we owe it to this kid, this supreme talent, to try to succeed or at least compete a little bit right away? I don't think Connor Bedard's coming in here and saying, now we need to win a Stanley Cup. But I think if it was Fantilli or Mitchkov or Carlson, 2-3 years on the road, you really start making that path. I think you have to start thinking about that path right now.
Yeah, I think you have to have players that can play with him, because we talked about it before the show. We were just kind of having a conversation here with all of us in the office. We were asked where is Connor Bedard as a prospect, and he is widely regarded within the draft analyst and scouting community as the best, most sure prospect to be an NHL star since Connor McDavid. And the only way that he doesn't reach his potential, what people believe he can be, is if the team that drafts him screws it up around him. So you can't throw him out there with just a bunch of guys that are still in tank mode or whatever. You got to put some guys around him that can play with a guy like him. And we saw it with Patrick Kane in his last couple of seasons. If he wasn't playing with guys that could match his ability or be able to play the style that he plays, he was less effective. So yeah, I think this probably will change a little bit of what the offseason may have been. You might have to target one of. I know we've talked about the free agency class being kind of meh this year. You might have to go out and get one of the top meh guys, because they might be able to help him.
Well, here's another factor too: is, as Greg mentioned, you've got all this draft capital. Now with Bedard, maybe some of that draft capital becomes trading for guys that are NHL ready, or that are already NHL players, and say, look, you're a team that's not going anywhere. Maybe there's another team in the league looking to rebuild. We'll give you this number 19 overall pick for one of your top 6 young players or something like that. Yeah. Look, what was the trade for Doc last year?
13 and third round pick.
Yeah. So some other team's Kirby Doc. Maybe not that guy specifically, but look, that's a third overall pick from a few years ago that a rebuilding team was ready to move on from for draft assets. Now Kyle Davidson gets in this mindset too of it's not just free agents. And the other thing is, now are you still looking to take on bad contracts for assets just because you're still rebuilding, whatever? I still think they're rebuilding. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the rebuild still has to happen. You still have to have patience, because next season's lineup is not Reichel, Bedard, Nazar, Korchinski, Del Mastro, Colton Dot. Like, it's not all those guys.
Nor should it be.
No, sure. Yeah, it shouldn't be, because you're setting those guys up to fail. You still have to have patience. You can't have the expectations that this one player is going to completely change the trajectory immediately. It's going to take time. Even Connor McDavid in his first year, albeit he got hurt halfway through, but even in that first year, he wasn't completely changing the Oilers in 1 year.
No.
And he still needs his first Stanley Cup.